Saying goodbye to your favorite player is one of the hardest things that any sports fan has to go through. And a lot of the times when a player is about to retire, their last season isn't really up to snuff with the rest of their career. And that's not really surprising. Most of these guys are creeping up on 40 years old, they don't have the same speed, athleticism, or power that they used to, and are simply doing it for the fans at the end of their career, or perhaps to go on one last run with their team. But in some cases, there are special anomaly last seasons, where a player verging on father time still can hack it in the major leagues. Today we're going to look at 6 guys that fit that bill. 6 guys that had all-star seasons in their last go, some getting MVP votes, some getting Cy Young votes, to the surprise of many. Some of these candidates won't surprise you, but some of them may shock you considering that you might have forgotten about them. One thing to note before we start is that I won't be talking about David Ortiz's last season because Foolish Baseball already did a fantastic video covering that. So if you want to hear about that ridiculous final go, check out Foolish Baseball's video, which I'll link in the top right. Alright, let's get into it. Here are MLB's best retirement tours. First up on our list is one of the best recent retirement seasons we've seen. In March of 2012, the Atlanta Braves announced that Chipper Jones would retire following the 2012 season after 19 years in Atlanta. He actually opened the season on the disabled list following surgery to repair a torn meniscus in his left knee. But he came back and was in top form. He ended up hitting a solo home run in Atlanta's win on his 40th birthday, ending up with a career batting average of .429 with 5 home runs on his birthday games. Chipper Jones would be named to the NL All-Star team as a replacement for the injured Matt Kemp, and the National League would win the All-Star game that year 8-0. Chipper continued to play well over his final season with consistent hitting and decent play in the field despite his age of 40 years old. He became the first switch hitter in Major League Baseball history to obtain at least 2,500 hits, 1,500 RBIs, 1,500 runs, and 1,500 walks. He ended his career hitting over 300 from both sides of the plate, and among switch hitters with at least 5,000 career at-bats, the only other player to do so is Frankie Frisch. He and Mickey Mantle are the only 2 switch hitters in MLB history to have an OBP of 400, slugging percentage of 500, and 400 home runs in their career. Chipper's single season averages are obviously hard to outdo, but he did a pretty damn good job considering that he was 40 years old in his last season. In February of 2013, the Braves announced that they would induct Jones into the Braves Hall of Fame and retire his number 10. A nice story and a nice ending for one of the most iconic Braves of all time. Despite him starting his career with 7 seasons for the Florida Marlins and some trips to the Toronto Blue Jays and New York Yankees, I will always remember AJ Burnett most as a Pittsburgh Pirate, which is weird because his time with that club came in his last 4 seasons. But he was there for their memorable postseason runs, including their first one in 2013. However, at the end of the 2013 season when the Pirates were eliminated, AJ Burnett stated that he would either return to Pittsburgh or retire. He ultimately decided to come back and play, but when he did, it wasn't with the Pirates, as he signed a contract with the Philadelphia Phillies. But that didn't go well, as he'd pitch to a 4.59 ERA and lead MLB in earned runs and walks allowed. So after the 2014 season, Burnett decided to come home for his final season in the Bigs. On November 14th of that year, he signed a 1-year deal with the Pirates, announcing that he would retire in 2015. This would also be the season where he was selected to his first All-Star team after 17 seasons in the league. Burnett was solid for the Pirates and filled out the rotation very nicely over 26 starts with a 3.18 ERA and 7.8 strikeout per 9 rate. And when you see his final season stats compared to his single season averages over his career, it's clear to see why he made the All-Star team this year. His ERA plus was 22 points above average, and his walk percentage dropped 2.5%. AJ Burnett was a good pitcher over his career, but he really went out with a bang, and it's very rare to see a starting pitcher exit his career with such dominance. The Pittsburgh Pirates definitely needed it as they competed in the NL Central, finishing second and hosting the wildcard game, but ultimately losing to the Cubs. So we've talked about 2 guys that went out ceremoniously, now let's talk about a guy whose career got cut short, if you will. In the offseason, after being an important part of their 2016 wildcard run, the San Francisco Giants traded Denard Span and others to the Tampa Bay Rays for Evan Longoria. His time as a Tampa Bay Ray was brief, but on opening day of 2018, Denard Span hit a 3-run triple against the Boston Red Sox, becoming the 3rd player to triple in his Rays debut. However, his slash line would not be great in Tampa Bay, and he'd be flipped in another trade with Alex Colomé to the Seattle Mariners. Span really started to hit his stride in Seattle, hitting .272 in 94 games with 7 home runs. He was a cheap option for them and was sort of a spark plug at the top of their lineup, but at the end of the season, the Mariners Players declined the 2019 option on his contract, making him a free agent. Sadly, no teams came calling for the 2019 season, so Span sat on the sidelines as a 34-year-old outfielder, certainly capable of still playing in the bigs. But in June of 2020, he confirmed that he had played his final game in the major leagues and was going to retire. During his retirement, Denard Span has founded a non-profit organization called the Denard Span Foundation, which was designed to aid single-parent families. So he's still doing something productive. But even with that heartwarming part of the story, you gotta wonder if Denard Span could have had a couple more effective seasons in the league. His slugging percentage, walk percentage, and OPS plus were all above his career averages for single season stats, and with a bit more playing time, he probably would have had a 10-10 season, as he was at 11 home runs and 9 stolen bases, despite being traded twice. Ah well, if Span's happy, we're happy. Next up is arguably the most impressive pitcher retirement season I came across during my research. In 2008, Mike Mussina started his 8th season as a New York Yankee and was a much-needed veteran in an inexperienced rotation. After starting the year 1-3 with a 5.75 ERA through 4 starts, many people thought he might have been done, out of gas. But he'd turn it up, going 9-1 in his subsequent 11 starts with a 3.25 ERA in that span. After getting his 10th win on June 15th, he extended his American League record to 17 consecutive seasons with at least 10 wins. He finished the season 20-9 with a 3.37 ERA, and his 67.6 first strike percentage was the highest among all Major League starters. Mussina did all of this as a 39-year-old coming off a penultimate season where he had a 5.15 ERA in 27 starts. So it was very impressive to say the least. He would finish second in American League Comeback Player of the Year award voting, losing out only to Cliff Lee of the Cleveland Indians. He got his 7th career Gold Glove and finished 6th in Cy Young voting that year, his best placement since 2001. He officially announced his retirement in November of that year, and he was the first player to retire following a 20-victory season since Hall of Famer Sandy Koufax in 1966. That's pretty elite company. Mussina led the American League in games started that year, had over 200 innings pitched, and his ERA plus was above 130. All of those marks happened for the first time for him since 2003, a season that came 5 years before. Mussina truly went out on top. Mussina was iconic with the Yankees, but let's talk about someone that wasn't so iconic with their last team. If you're a Colorado Rockies fan, then seeing Larry Walker in a Cardinals jersey has to be a little bit traumatizing. In August of 2004, Colorado sent Larry Walker, who was batting .324 in 38 games, to the Cardinals for prospects. This was a move that was not popular with Rockies faithful, but it made sense as Walker was aging and approaching the last season of his career. Walker had 258 home runs as a Colorado Rocky and was beloved by Rockies fans everywhere, but his final days would come in St. Louis. He became the Cardinals' everyday two-hitter, hitting behind the speedy Tony Womack and in front of Jim Edmonds and Albert Pujols. He'd actually appear in the World Series with the Cardinals his first year, going 4 for 5 with a home run and 2 doubles, as the Cardinals ultimately lost to the Boston Red Sox. He'd play again in the 2005 season, but with 8 previous surgeries and playing with pain constantly, Walker signaled that he would retire from playing after that season, even with a $12 million team option for 2006. The team would make it back to the NLCS with Walker's help, losing to the Astros in 6 games, but Larry Walker ended his career 50th on Major League Baseball's all-time home run list with 383 bombs. He also had an 886 OPS in his final season with a 130 OPS plus, and still managed to hit 15 home runs and collect 52 RBIs, even after only playing in 100 games. At the age of 38, Larry Walker finally retired, and it took a while, but he'd eventually become a Hall of Famer. So after playing in just 4 postseason games in 10 years with the Rockies, Larry Walker went on a wild ride with the Cardinals, playing in 24 postseason games in 2 years. So at the very least, he got to have some postseason experience before he retired, but I'm sure the Rockies faithful would have loved if that came in the black and purple. Last up on our list is another retirement season that I see as pretty unceremonious considering how effective it was. Jesse Crain was extremely dependable over his 10-year career, pitching in over 50 games in 7 of his first 9 seasons. Surprisingly enough though, his last full season may have been his best. Despite 376 games and a 3.42 ERA over 7 seasons with the Minnesota Twins, Crain's best work and only All-Star season came on his retirement tour with the Chicago White Sox. Jesse Crain was used as the setup man for 2013, and from April 17th to June 22nd, he pitched 29 straight scoreless appearances, a franchise record. He was elected to the All-Star game, but since he was injured, he'd be replaced by Justin Masterson. Crain attempted multiple comebacks after being traded to the Tampa Bay Rays in the middle of his All-Star season and not appearing for them due to injury. He signed a 1-year deal with the Astros, but did not appear there due to injury, and after a failed comeback on a second stint with the White Sox on a minors deal, Crain retired in 2015. Despite wanting to play more, Crain qualifies for the MLB's pension program, so I'm sure he's enjoying retirement pretty pretty comfortably. Still, the fact that he pitched to a .74 ERA in his final season speaks volumes to what he could have done if injuries didn't hamper the rest of his career. And that'll do it for MLB's best retirement tours. Now, there were a lot of seasons to go through, so I probably missed your favorite. So, if I did, make sure you leave a comment down below letting me know which season I missed, and maybe I'll just make a part 2. As always, I appreciate your guys' support, and if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I also want to shout out my new patrons who have been supporting me on Patreon. Their names will be featured in the credit slide of this video. But yeah, that'll about do it for me. I'm the Jolly Olive, and I'll see you guys next time.